expert, the guy. Matty's got jokes and a wild ride. 30 minutes, no time to spare. Stack your lineup, win anywhere. SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge, get faster. Taylor leads, Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Halfa.
G'day Super Coaches and welcome to another great edition of the NFL SuperCoach Halfa. With thanks to the Aussie Gridiron Network, I'm Matty C, and joining me as always for another journey into the NFL SuperCoach landscape, it's Australia's finest fantasy analyst. Welcome back, Taylor.
Matty, we are here and it's week 4. I know I weigh a metric ton, but I am ready to soar. Let's go.
And I'm ready for more. Come on, let's tag on that. That's fantastic. It is amazing that we are so close to the kickoff of the season. Can you kind of almost feel your team starting to rack up points, mate? I can feel it.
Oh, mate, we also know how much I love this shit. Like, you know, only a week or so out, and we start setting our alarms at 3 a.m. and starting to get up and think we're going to get some sleep, but we get absolutely no sleep. Mate, honestly, the fantasy football in general, whether it's SuperCoach or just regular NFL fantasy, mate, it is so good. We love it. Yeah. And can't wait for all the twists and turns. And obviously, we're all going to cop injuries, and it's going to be annoying at times. But I feel like the good times always outweigh the negatives, mate. Can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be wild, mate. This is going to be a fun season for me in a lot of ways because while I'm doing a lot of different season-long formats, this whole SuperCoach version of the sport I'm really into fascinates the hell out of me. And I just love we've been able to get these opportunities week by week to get together. Mate, this is our 4th one, right? For those who haven't caught it, go back and find the earlier ones because firstly, the first one is just great into strategy. And then we've also been talking about positions. And here we are about to talk about wide receiver. But we've had such wonderful support from folks who found us, who've then also gone on to find other parts of the network where we produce content for other sorts of NFL. And it's really flowed on. It's been incredible.
Yeah, mate, it really has been. Honestly, just the support we've had for this podcast that's, 3 weeks old into its 4th episode has been phenomenal. I'm getting feedback in my DMs about it, and I'm constantly asking questions to all of you. And if you ever have input into this show that you want to hear something different or we've missed something, we're definitely not perfect. We're definitely sort of using you guys to tell us exactly how to make this show better. So thank you so much for all the feedback so far, and I hope what we're doing is helping you guys out there create your week 1 teams because we're so close now.
And that's what it's about, right? You want to get off on the right foot. It has been phenomenal, the feedback we've had, because it has helped inform what we do. We're on Spotify, of course. That's where we launch most things. And we'll have polls through the season. We can swipe up and interact with some of the polls through the season. If you're on any other podcast provider, the podcast is going to be there every Thursday, Friday. And then we're also on YouTube. And Manjot, who kind of runs the YouTube part of the Aussie Gridiron Network, has been reporting there's been a heap of people finding us on the YouTube. You don't get a video of us, but you do get the audio with the all of that through the YouTube. So it's just, there's a few ways to find us as well, which is handy.
Yep, absolutely, mate.
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to dive into before we start talking about wide receivers is that the AGN does a lot of things, right? We've got giveaways to do with fantasy. We've got all sorts of great things happening within the Gridiron Network. We're trying to engage folks and we get to give away some cool stuff. This is no different. There is an AGN tipping competition that's running through the ESPN Footy Tips site. Find it by going to our mothership. We have one website that contains the links for everything our network does. It's linktree/Aussie Gridiron Network. You can find links to every podcast we've ever put up. You can find links to Manjot's content on Pastry Press in Instagram. You can find our YouTube channel. But most importantly, this is the top thing on the page. Go and join the tipping comp. It costs nothing. And the winner at the end of the season is going to walk away with a custom NFL jersey. And all you're doing is picking a winner in every matchup. There's no, I've got to consider 6.5 points to the Ravens, nothing like that. It is literally who's going to win the game, lock it in, walk away. And whoever tallies it up the most, which I assume is going to be Taylor, but whoever comes after Taylor is going to win a custom NFL jersey. Mate, what would you get if you got a custom NFL jersey?
Oh, look, it'd be tough to go away from Cam Ward, my boy. And I kept thinking, like, should I just go something like super random within the Titans? Like, doesn't, and like someone that probably no one's even heard of or anything. But then I'm like, Cam Ward's the best bet for him to stay there for a while. Sometimes I feel like you take a shot on a wide receiver or something like that, then they're off the team in 2 years, and you're like, fuck, I'm stuck with this jersey. The guy's not even on the team anymore. So I'm going to take a shot that Cam Ward might be the future and might be there for a little while. So I'm going to go for Cam Ward Titans jersey, Matty C.
See, there you go. I think it's about time you retire the Mariota Titans one, by the way. So,
it's been hanging around. It's been hanging around. Wow.
I love that you unstitched the nameplate and wrote Levis in Texter on it, but it doesn't get you by.
I did have a DeMarco Murray Titans jersey there for a little while, and he didn't last too long either.
That's terrific. I like the idea of having a legacy player with the new jersey, though. So, like, for me, I think I'd find it hard not to go back and just get Fred Taylor on a new Jags jersey. I think that'd be fantastic. I'm a bit of a legacy guy.
Yeah, it's like when they've left the team for long enough, you can go back to it. Kind of cool, but it's like if they've just left, people look at you and go, "Did you just get that out of the bargain bin?" Like, it's like people going and get the Luka Doncic Mavs singlets out of like the $10 bloody bargain bin. So I think people look at you when it's too close. But yeah, if you go 10 years long, yeah, it's actually all right to go back to the old school.
And like, oh, you're a hardcore Trekkie and do that thing with the hand signal with the V between your two fingers. Yeah, that's kind of what I get when I get around in a Fred Taylor jersey. For anyone who even recognises the damn Jags, for starters, but those who do tend to know who Fred Taylor is. Mate, it is time we talked about wide receiver. And what is interesting as hell about the way that this game is built is that there is 6 starters for wide receiver and 2 on the bench. We've had 6 starters between the 2 positions we've talked about so far. So this is a position of it's going to carry a lot of the hopes for your season. Mate, when it comes to wide receiver, do you have a little bit of a plan about how you're building your team before we get into some specifics?
I am looking forward to chatting about this Matty C, because I'm still kind of looking at my last couple of positions and which way I might want to go. We'll sort of touch on it because I've obviously got the top 15 percentage owned wide receivers to get to, so we're not really going to have a huge amount of time on each one to sort of keep anywhere towards the Halfa show that we've sort of said that we will do, but not really done. So I'm kind of looking at this like, do I go complete high-end players and then maybe just fill in a rookie as my 6th wide receiver, or do I essentially go 4 guns and then decide to go 2 mid-ranges, which is basically mid-range price players at the bottom, and then hope those guys break out? So I'm going to sort of touch on that again at the end, but I will sort of mention guys as we talk about whether they're in my team or whether they fit the right sort of style or the right price tag for my team and how I'm looking. But I will say off the top of the show, I do believe this is a position you should spend a lot of money on. I'm basically looking at wide receiver and I guess my starting quarterbacks as the position of need in terms of getting points now, because I feel like there are other positions, your running backs and tight ends and kickers and stuff like that. I feel like that's where you can save money and make money. I do feel like wide receiver might be that position where you're better off just locking in guns straight away and just taking the points and not worrying about making money there.
So is there a position in rugby league fantasy, for instance, SuperCoach, NRL, that wide receiver is a bit like? Because I'm still a bit experienced with that part of SuperCoach, but I tend to just spend money on my props, and I don't care if they make me money. They're kind of keepers. Is there a position you would say is a bit like what you're describing for wide receiver out of the other sports?
Yeah, I'd probably say fullback for NRL. Fullback's probably like, I guess fullback in a way would probably be more like quarterback in terms of the way we're looking at this, because, we've got our flex, and the idea at the start of the NRL season was you'd probably want 2 fullbacks and a flex. So obviously the highest scoring position would obviously be where you're wanting to flex, and that's probably where we're all looking for our quarterback this year. So I guess the correlation's probably better for quarterback with fullback. I guess if you wanted to sort of correlate wide receiver, I'd probably maybe look at halfback. I guess like with your Clearys and your Jerome Hugheses and your Nico Hineses, I think that's probably more correlates with wide receiver for NFL. So, yeah, I guess that would be the best way. I sort of worked through it myself as you asked the question.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I do think their quarterback's going to be more like fullback in terms of like wanting as many of them and probably flexing it. But our wide receiver's probably a halfback where you're probably still spending a lot of money and you're just going to lock in those guns like a Cleary, and you're kind of fine if you don't make or lose money. You just want those points.
Yeah, because that's the balance, right? I like that you managed that on no notice. I just kind of thought that question up as we were talking. So thank you for taking that one like a sturdy wicket keeper, mate. Just unflummoxed, reacted to the ball, caught it
Well,
beautifully.
I'm definitely sturdy, mate. I've definitely not been told that I'm too thin.
Well, so you and I differ, mate. Let's dive into this top 15. And I think maybe the smart way to go here is we sort of alternate back and forth between the players and give kind of a couple of bullet points. And then if the others sort of got something they want to tag on, just so we can pull through them. What do you reckon?
Sounds good, mate. Let's go.
Well, mate, number one is Jamar Chase. He's 53%. Oh, well, sorry. I'm going to go with current numbers, so I'll edit this in. The first one is Jamar Chase. He's currently 55% started by SuperCoach at a cost of $23.58 million. Puts his break even at 39 points. Tay, how do you feel about him?
Yeah, he's straight into my team, honestly, mate. 127 catches, 1,708 yards, 17 touchdowns. And honestly, I don't understand why that's not going to happen again. Their defense is still going to be just as shit. They're going to be constantly in hurry-up game scripts where the team's going to need to score a lot of points. Joe Burrow and him have, honestly, possibly the best connection in the NFL. This team is set up for fantasy success. They've basically sort of top-loaded their offense. They've basically paid for Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown. They've sort of just wanted a great fantasy offense with a terrible defense. Yeah. It's a funny way they've kind of worked their team. And honestly, in the division and a lot of these AFC teams they're playing against, they're going to need to keep up and score points as well. Jamar Chase is just honestly, like, if he's not the best wide receiver in the league, he's top three. Like, there isn't really a lot of other guys you could say that's just, more of a bona fide talent. So I'm locking this guy in straight away. I know he's got a very high price tag. There is a chance, over the year he might leak like a tiny bit of cash. But like I mentioned with Cleary in NRL, you kind of wear that because you just want the points. And he's always a captaincy option in good matchups as well. So, yeah, mate, he's straight into my team.
I put him straight into my team too. I didn't want to mess about. I'm going to pay up for him because he's going to deliver the points. The second most owned player, and I love this because this is people cashing in on a young fellow who we know is going to have quite a role straight away, is Teteroa McMillan, or we just call him Tet McMillan. He's 51% started by Supercoaches, but because he's a rookie, he's only got a $4.6 million buy-in, which is break even at 8. So too good to pass up?
I honestly just have him written down. I don't have a lot of info on him because I just think he's a no-brainer. I just think the fact he's walking straight in to be the wide receiver one for the Panthers at this price is just too good to pass up. Like, he should be 100%. He's kind of the one wide receiver that reminds me of your Genties and your Omar and Hamptons in the running back position. I just don't think it's one that you need to dissect too much. I think the only question is whether you start him in your lineup or whether you bench him. I just think he should be in everyone's team. They just got rid of Adam Thielen, and I know, he's older and a lot of people might not see that as a big deal, but he was probably the one main target getter on the Panthers that I would have been at least slightly concerned would have taken a little bit of volume off Tet in year one, whereas he's gone, he's been shipped away, which gives me even more reason to believe that Tet is their guy, and from week one they're just going to pepper him with targets. I think he's going to be Bryce Young's best friend. Just get him in your team.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much to worry about there, and just given that price and knowing that there's going to be volume. The third one to me is super problematic, Tay, and it's not just because it's a Jacksonville Jaguar. They're my team, and I should have a lot of rooting support for them. But when it comes to, this is fantasy football, and Travis Hunter is currently starting 47% of leagues. He's also a rookie with a $4.7 million price tag to buy in, so his break even's the same. Why do we have a differing opinion about Travis Hunter once we've just said all those wonderful things about Tet McMillan?
I think you and I might be. I'm interested in your takes because obviously you're a Jags fan and you would think there would be bias, but I think you and I are a little bit, in simpatico with this one. I don't know if either of us against each other, but it's one where, look, if you look at the price tag and the break even, it feels like a no-brainer. It seems like it's just someone who's guaranteed to make money. But the problem for me is you've got other guys that I just think are in a better situation that are at the same price. I'll give you some stats. So Trevor Lawrence last year had 2,045 passing yards in 10 games. So he was on pace for just over 3,400 for an entire season. You've also got Brian Thomas Jr., who was the bona fide number one. I absolutely love him. He had 1,282 yards himself in his rookie season. So you'd think, if anything, anything, that's only going to go up. It doesn't really leave much else room. It doesn't really leave much room for Hunter to come in and have a huge sort of workload in year one. You've got the running back room in Travis Etienne and other guys that can catch passes. Tootin, who they took as a rookie this year, they profile as good pass catchers. So there's even more yards that's got to go around to them. There's also some other wide receivers they've got in that room that I'm just not sold. Like, we don't even know exactly what the snap counts are going to be for Hunter in year one on offense, because he can play defense as well. I've just got little red flags as to why, look, he's going to make money. The break-even's tiny. I get it. But I just feel like there's other guys that I have less question marks around. So I'll be interested to hear what you say, Matty C.
Well, and I agree with all of that. But the other consideration I've got is any snap he's playing on defense is a snap he's not playing on offense, and you don't get defensive points in SuperCoach. No other wide receiver has this concern to worry about. And to me, that makes him an immediate write-off, because I can invest that same money in another player who's a rookie, who's got a better outcome, who doesn't have that concern. So this is just take your pile and just throw this one on the top.
Yep. That sounds good, mate. I thought we would have been on the same page in that one.
100%. And I don't know who's thinking about that, because you see Travis Hunter go 101 in rookie drafts for individual defensive scoring, because then, well, that's a defending play. You can put him in a defensive starting role, but you can also get offensive points from him. It's the only time that Travis Hunter is more valuable than anyone else. He is not more valuable than anyone else in SuperCoach. And I just think there's 47% of people who, I think they're going into this with the right mindset, but this is just a way to execute it probably not as well as you could. I mean, this could all blow up on my face and could be excellent, but I've got my concerns.
I'll just give a little devil's advocate. Liam Cohen's come over from the Buccaneers, and there is a chance that he could propel this offense forward. So there is a world bigger pie in terms of the passing yards for Lawrence than there was, say, last season. They could move that 3,400 towards a 4,000, which could give him more opportunity. But like we've already spoken about, there's just too many question marks. And if he comes out in the first 2 or 3 weeks and brains it, he's not going to have raised enough money for us to not just get him in anyway. So I just think he's a take, watch, have a look at what the snap counts are like. I just don't think he needs to be in your team week one.
No, and that's the only consideration, is if he does start making money, well, how fast can you make that money? You're always going to be able to afford him. The next guy on the list is, again, we've so far talking about bulletproof veteran everybody knows about, couple of rookies. Now I'm going back to a bulletproof veteran everyone knows about. Justin Jefferson is currently started by 41% of super coaches, and he is coming in at a $18.38 million cap hit, puts his break even at 31 points. I feel like this is just another one of those stars. You just spend the money, put him in, take the points.
Yeah, it is that, Matty C. 103 catches, 1,533 yards and 10 touchdowns. I'm not really worried. I've spoke about McCarthy in the quarterback show and the KOC offense. I've spoken about 9,000 times between our regular NFL fantasy show and the Supercoach show. I'm just not worried about him so much. You saw Sam Darnold come in and be amazing on this offense, and no one was touting Sam Darnold for the season, so I don't understand why I would be worried about McCarthy throwing it. There's not really competition for targets. You've got Hawkinson that I think will mop up some volume, but you've got Jordan Addison, who's the wide receiver 2, who's suspended for the first 3 games. So I think there's a reason why you could even believe that Jefferson has an even bigger target share in those first few weeks. So he's just, like I said, if Jamar Chase isn't the best wide receiver in the league, it probably is Jefferson. So he's one of these guys like a Clear, like a Hines, that I brought up with the NRL side of it, that you just lock in and you take the points. Is there a world where he could drop money here and there? Yes, but he's going to have these blow-up games where he scores 60 or 70 Supercoach points. So you're going to want to have him. You're going to be behind if you don't have him.
And he's 18 million, right? What world is going to have to happen for him to lose serious cash? So this is kind of what I'm looking at, is going, well, to me, he's about the most steady blue chip. I don't really care if he grows value, because I'm not expecting that. So if he does, terrific, because he's already coming at such a high baseline. So to me, it's like, well, what's got to happen for him to be destabilized? It's going to take something horrific. But then you can sell out of him. You've got a big body of cash to go and replace him as well. So I kind of feel like he's just completely... He's all soft landing spaces in a way that Travis Hunter, who we talked about 2 minutes ago, was all rocky landing places.
The only devil's advocate I could find is that generally, and I'm looking at McCarthy still like he's a rookie because he obviously missed his entire first season. That's why I call him a red shirt rookie. He's coming into his second year, but he didn't play a snap last year. The only concern is generally, and this hasn't always happened recently, but rookies don't normally throw a lot of touchdowns. It's just the way things sort of happen. And so there is a chance you could see some of his touchdowns regress, but he also didn't have an amazing touchdown year last year. Like 10 touchdowns is so repeatable. So it's like if McCarthy doesn't throw an absurd amount of touchdowns, then like what could his touchdowns go to? Like 8 instead of 10? It's not enough to drop him over an entire season. So I just thought I'd put that out there because if anyone's looking for any reasons to not start with Jefferson, maybe that's one, but I'm definitely starting with him.
100%. What is surprising to me, though, about the fifth guy on this list is that this is, again, we've gone for a couple of bulletproof guys. Now we're back to a rookie again. Emeka Egbuka, and this is a fun name to say, and you know, if you're not used to saying it, take a little run up, read ahead, and then give it a go because you might trip over. He is getting this wonderful bump because he's had another wide receiver in that offense get hurt recently. We have seen that this offense at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers throws a lot. He is currently priced in at $4.45 million, which, again, it puts his break-even at like 7 points. He's actually overtaken Justin Jefferson in the last couple of hours, and he's actually 42% started by SuperCoaches. I just kept it in the original order that we had when we were planning the show, but he's actually now overtaken Justin Jefferson. Just support that move, just given some of the things that you need a rookie to be able to pick up are kind of turning his way.
Yeah, I've got him written down right next to Tet. I think he's a no-brainer as well. And honestly, the main reason, obviously Tet will be the wide receiver 1. Egbuka is going to be the wide receiver 2, but here's the reason why I believe he's just like he should be in just as many amount as teams, which is 100. Mayfield had 4,500 passing yards last year, so that was actually third in the league. He had 41 touchdowns, which is tied for second. And obviously you've got Mike Evans, who's the wide receiver 1, who's getting on an age who can find an injury. So basically the seas, Moses has parted the seas for Egbuka. Like, I loved his talent. I obviously went, early in the NFL draft in the first round, but the problem was initially it's like, you've got Jalen McMillan, who's an incumbent there. You've got Chris Godwin, what's he going to do? Anyway, we've found out already McMillan's missing half the season and Godwin's going to miss at least 3 or 4 games. So basically, from the get-go, you've got Egbuka walking into this wide receiver 2 role for a team that loves to pass the absolute crap out of the ball. It just seems like an absolute no-brainer to me. Even if Mike Evans is the bona fide 1, which we believe he will be, there is just so many more passing yards. Like, I know you love Baker. You think he's going to throw for a shit ton, possibly even more yards this year than he did last year. Like, there is just so much pie to go around. And this is what I spoke about with Lawrence, is that if there's a pie to go around, it doesn't matter if you're a wide receiver 2. We also look at T. Higgins, at Cincinnati Bengals. He's the bona fide wide receiver 2 behind Chase, but we love him because there's so much pie. There's so much passing yardage to go around, and this is exactly what's going to happen here. The wide receiver 2 is going to be great, and he doesn't even have to be great at this break even. So, yeah, it's a no-brainer to me. I absolutely love the talent, and I love the landing spot.
Yeah, give me all the reasons for Tet, except that this pie is huge, right? There's 550 passing attempts, and they're going to stick somewhere. And with people who were otherwise in front of Egbuka just falling over and giving Egbuka this wonderful starting place, we should see him gain cash quickly, and then you can get out of him if you want when all these things start to run away from him as supporting players in that offense get healthy. I love everything you said there. I don't really have a heap of devil's advocate at this stage, but it will be that you just need to be mindful of keeping up the news ticker on when fellows like Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan are going to be back healthy.
Yep, absolutely.
From here, of those 5 guys, 4 of them are in my team. It's really only Travis Hunter that I have not spent any time on. But in this next 5, almost none of them are. And I think we're probably going to end up saying a lot of the same things about why here. This guy, he's my favorite name in fantasy football at the moment, Matthew Golden. I'm thinking about changing my surname to Golden. He's a rookie who comes in at $4.35 million. He comes to the Green Bay Packers. They have a break even for him of about 7 points. So he's got a lot of the same things that we've seen that are true about a lot of other rookies. We love this guy's talent. And I actually think he's probably going to be the first target with the ball in this offense. There's a lot of reasons to like him. It's just that I've already kind of used my 2, let's fill it up with the cheapy guys on 2 other names. Otherwise, I'd be all over Golden.
Yeah, he feels like another no-brainer. Again, it is in terms of price tag. It's just how you build your team. I've spoke about is, let's look at the last couple of spots on your wide receivers. You're starting 6 and you've got 2 on the bench. It's, do you decide to load up on, what we call guns and just have like a rookie starting in that like wide receiver 6 spot? Or do you go, I might actually go, 2 mid-ranges, like maybe around 13, 14, 15 million and sort of fill the end of my starters with those guys. Then they leave 2 bench spots for rookies. So it's all about the build of your team. But honestly, Golden in this whole preseason has been one of my biggest rises. I was not in on him when they first drafted him. We got on our regular NFL fantasy show, and I didn't really understand the pick for them. I thought they would have been better off going after like a Ted McMillan as their wide receiver 1. I thought they needed more of a bona fide sort of volume getter as their wide receiver 1 at the Packers. But I don't know, the more I'm wide receiver in front of him, Jordan Love last year missed so much time through injury, and even when he came back, he wasn't healthy. I know technically he's got the finger issue on his non-throwing hand, but he's coming back and he's going to start the season healthy enough. Love had 4,139 passing yards in 2023. His last non-injury riddled season. He was the 23rd pick in the NFL draft this year. I just think there's so many green flags this year for him. And to be honest, if I'm starting my team of 5 guns and then running a rookie as my wide receiver 6, I'm definitely putting Golden over Hunter as my one of my bench wide receivers.
100%. I think this is that thing of also if you decide you wanted Golden over either Igbokwe or McMillan, I'm not going to persecute you for it because I think they've all just kind of got a lot of the same things that we all like, and it's just, well, then where do you spend your money? So I think in any team build, Golden's not a bad name to have around your conversations. CeeDee Lamb is number 7.
Absolutely, mate.
One of these guns, right? He's got a 32% ownership across SuperCoaches at the moment. He's 16.6 million, which prices him nicely, puts him in that sort of at the bottom of that top 5 in terms of cost. But we know that offense is going to have to throw. We heard a bit of news as we were coming to air today that the Dallas defense has changed. It starts setting them to look up a lot like that Bengals offense, where the defense is weaker. The offense is going to have to throw the ball, score a lot of points because their defense won't be able to retain point scoring. So now, to me, all of a sudden in the last, especially 24 hours, I actually like CeeDee Lamb even more than I did.
So I might say something a little controversial here, Matty C. I think he should be higher owned than Jamar Chase. I think you're getting a discount on him that you shouldn't get. His stats are far lower the last year because he lost his starting quarterback in Dak 8 games into the season. He was 101 receptions for 1,194 yards. That's what he's been priced on for this year. That is incredibly low for him. Basically, the entire second half of the season, he was with backup quarterbacks, and it completely threw off his season. To showcase that, the last season, so 2023, where he had Dak Prescott the entire season, he had 135 catches and 1,749 yards. Like, the difference between what he's being priced at now and what he can do is phenomenal. Like, it is absolutely absurd. Like we just found out, Micah Parsons has been fucking traded by Jerry Jones. So that defense is going to be even worse. Like you said, it is going to be like Bengals light. And I think this offense in general is going to be able to move the ball. But 2, who I think will mop up wins. But I could also counter that and say that just means the offense as a whole is going to be better, and they're going to be in more situations where they can get touchdowns. And I think in the past, you've actually had problems with Dak where he's had drives not be sustained because teams have just basically blanketed CeeDee Lamb and he's had no one else to pass to. So I think it's actually going to help the offense as a whole. The defense is going to suck. They are going to be like, I guess, what we call a discount Bengals, where you're going to basically have an amazing talent in CeeDee Lamb having what I think is going to be like Jamar Chase-like numbers this season. So he is a complete no-brainer for me. I would pick him first in the wide receiver position at that price.
Yeah, I didn't have to blink when I took CeeDee Lamb just because he is so underpriced for what we know his potential volume can be. But I just think in the last 24 hours that potential, the ceiling on that just got even higher. So try and stop me putting CeeDee Lamb in teams, which, he's currently priced in that he's priced so brilliantly that you can't walk past it. But he's also, his ownership is nice and high. And I think that means that there's probably a lot of people who are starting to think the same as us. We just want to make sure that people are very aware of all the green flags that we've got for CeeDee Lamb. There is a massive drop in ownership here. You go from the sort of 32, 33% range here down to 23 with the next guy on the list. And his name is Drake London. He's the number one receiver in the Atlanta Falcons. He's priced in at $15.95 million and comes with a 27-point break even. So his break even is almost the same as CeeDee Lamb's, who's 28. Mate, I don't have Drake London in my side, but I guess, he's, again, it's one of these gun players that you can expect to get a lot of points out of. What do you have to say about Drake London?
Yeah, I've got some stats for you, Matty C, because he's a very interesting one. You obviously had most of the season with a broken down Kirk Cousins, basically coming off an Achilles tear at his age. So you can sort of throw out some of the numbers from early the season last year. So basically, here's what he finished as. So he had Michael Penix, who's going to be his current quarterback, come in with about 3 games to go last year. So I know it's a small sample size, but I thought I'd just break down what his, SuperCoach numbers were during that time. So first game in with Penix, it was 5 receptions for 59 yards, which is 21.8 SuperCoach points. So not amazing, less than his break even at 27. He then had a 7 receptions for 106 game, which is 35.2 SuperCoach points. So that's above his break even. Then in the last game, he had 10 receptions for 187 yards and 2 touchdowns, a whopping 81.4 SuperCoach points. So over that span of Penix-led games, he had an average of 46.13 SuperCoach points with Penix. So that's obviously nearly 20 points over his SuperCoach break even. He's also got a bad defense, so they will be in shootouts a lot themselves. It's basically a pick based off your confidence levels of Penix. Like, is he going to be this gunslinger that finished last year? Or was it just the fact that he only had 3 games left and he was bad against bad defenses and he just was able to just throw at will because he knew he wasn't going to lose his job for next year just based off 3 games? So, yeah, it's one of these ones. I don't have him either right now, but I see the merit. I can see this breakout potential for him. There's just guys that you don't have to take as many risks on some other guys in this range. Like we've talked about a few of them already. We'll probably get to some others, but there's just less risk to other guys. But I do think there's an opportunity where I'll have this guy at some stage in the year. It's just probably not going to be week 1. But you know what? Those stats are interesting.
They are. And I think, so this is one of these things where, if you really like Drake London, just go and put him in your team. You don't have to have everyone that we talk about. It's just most people aren't going to win SuperCoach, right? So if you're not going to win, you might as well not win with players you love, but have a go at winning it. Yep. This is a guy who could do that for you. I personally just want to see it first. That's all. I just want to see what this offense looks like when I've got a bigger sample size in 3 games when some teams are starting to quit at the end of the year.
That's it, Matty. And that's what I'm trying to put out there is, If for a guy like this that you're just not 100% sure and you see the path but you're not sure, don't pick him in week 1. But it's going to be pretty easy to make trades this year, because obviously we're all going to have all these guns in our wide receiver position. It's like, okay, week 1 happens and one of your guns doesn't go as well as you thought, and London, who you thought had this opportunity to dominate this year, just make a trade and get him in week 2 if you saw everything you need to see in week 1. So I just think there's, like I said, less risk in other guys from week 1, because what if London obviously just does fall and you've spent 15 million on him? I just think there's other guys that have more chance of just hitting in week 1.
Yeah, because that cost, you're definitely looking for stability or growth. Yeah. Next guy on this list is a bona fide gun. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the 9th most SuperCoach owned wide receiver. He comes in with a 22% ownership and a price tag of $17.99 million. I love this guy. He's an absolute gun, and he's in an offense that I think actually has to throw more than they have in previous years. So there was a big part of me that wants to have him on my side. The way I'm built at the moment, I don't, but I'm not completely sold with how I've got my wide receivers built. Tay, push me the rest of the way over the line on Amon-Ra.
So I do have him. When I was sort of just talking about Drake London and guys that I feel like I've got a little bit more dependability on week 1, this is one of them. This isn't going to be a stats breakdown. Obviously you got 17.99 mil and a 30 break even. So he's priced on, a very good year. But I just think he's the most dependable guy here. I don't think he's going to drop much money, and I don't think he's going to make much money. So I just think he's going to literally deliver everything you need out of him in this position. So look, if you're like, wanting to take someone else that maybe has the ability to make money, or you don't want to just spend money on that position that's just going to be dependable every week. You want that full breakout, then go someone else. That's fine. I'm not saying he's a no-brainer. He's just a bit of a no-brainer for me with the way I'm building my team. I want that dependability. I want him to basically score that 30 to 35 around his break even every single week and just sort of lock it in. Like you said, I think there's reasons to believe that this Detroit Lions team's going to pass more. They lost their best offensive lineman in their center, Frank Ragnow, and I think that's going to hurt their running game. So I think there's going to be times where they're going to throw more than they've done in other years, where they've just been able to run the absolute crap out of the ball. So, yeah, I just think there's an opportunity where he could get even more volume. When this team throws more, it almost always goes to Amon-Ra. He's just a target monster. He's always in the top 5 in targets every single season. So if they pass more, if Jared Goff feels the need, they're in more game strips where they've got to pass instead of run, it is just going to get funneled to Amon-Ra. He's just their bona fide number one. So there's reason to me to believe that there's actually opportunity for more volume this year. There's no way it's going to be less.
Yeah. And it's enough for me to be like, I probably need to just jiggle around some of the finer points of money to try and make sure I find a way to get him on my side. But I am going a very top-heavy build with my wide receivers, so it may be a little tricky to do. But I like that there's such a high percentage of SuperCoaches sort of moving towards that. That's the 9th most owned guy at 22%. So it's some people moving in the right direction with their guns. There's a couple of guns in this area. The next one, I think, is a gun who had a silencer on him, mate. The 10th wide receiver is Tyreek Hill. He comes from a very specific situation at Miami where their quarterback was, he was not there for a large part of their year. And when he was back, they were very careful with him. It'll be interesting to see whether they give him full range and whether their offense goes back to what we knew it could be. But Tyreek Hill has the ability to be a wide receiver 1 or 2 over the course of an entire season. Last year, super depressed by all these other factors. He comes in at only $12 million, but he also comes with a lot of risk.
So this is the hardest one for me, Matty C, and this is the hardest one in terms of the build of my team. It's like, do I take 2 shots at mid-ranges like Tyreek Hill that could go back to what they were or could have a break here? Or do I take the dependable 18 mil guy and then pair him with a rookie? It's like, I'll put some names to it. It's like, all right, do I take Tyreek Hill at 12 million and, I don't know, Xavier Worthy from the Chiefs around the same amount, who I think both have the ability to be far better than their price tag? Or do I take Justin Jefferson and Emeka Egbuka and start those guys? It's really difficult for me because I do see the reason to believe that Tyreek is far better this year. You look at it, 81 catches for 956 yards is what he's being priced on right now. 1 year prior, he had 119 catches for 1,799 yards and 13 touchdowns. Like, the difference from 1 year to another is absurd. There was a wrist injury as he was getting arrested, apparently, before week 1. And then 2 of 6 games and the offense was horrendous. Even when he came back, the offense completely changed. They were basically just trying to protect Tua, and they were just dumping off to Jonnu Smith and, Achane. They just weren't doing any kind of stretching the field with Tyreek, and that's why you need him. So I just think there's reason to believe that things could be better. But you could also make the case that Tyreek is just not who he was 2 years ago. Maybe he just isn't the same dude, and he's aged out a bit. He's into his 30s now, and this Miami offense is 1-2 concussion away from their entire season just being like gone to shit. And I will just say, for super coaches out there that have played Supercoach a fair bit, taking mid-ranges like this can be difficult, because what happens is if Tyreek gets injured or, it turns out that he's not the guy that you wanted him to be to break out, it's harder to then trade your mid-ranges up to, say, an $18 million gun. Whereas if you build your team and you just fill it with guns and then maybe have a rookie, it's easier to get out of that. These mid-ranges really need to pop early. Otherwise, you've got to find 5 or 6 million to then upgrade them. So it is a hard, difficult choice, because yes, he could be this guy that should be priced at 18 million, or he could suck and your entire team is ruined in the wide receiver position because you can't find the money to upgrade him. So it really is a tough decision right now.
I mean, I went ahead and put him in because I'm going to play a little risky there and just see if I can get some upside out of him. And I feel like I'll know very quick. Like, he has got such a a low break even to try and come up with that he can probably sustain it, and then I can get an idea very quickly whether he's actually going to grow me any money or not, and then get out of him in a hurry if I need to. But I do understand there's an element of risk, and I kind of feel like I'm accepting that by doing it.
Yep, it's fine. I'm fine. I'm telling myself, honestly, it's honestly the biggest question in my wide receiver position is what to do with those last two spots. It's gun and rookie, or it's two sort of mid ranges, and I'm just trying to weigh up the pros and cons of it myself right now.
Yeah, and I'm doing that same dance. So it's good to know, like, as someone who's coming into the SuperCoach experience with very NFL background and trying to make that money work, that someone who's sort of done both quite well over time, that I'm not too far from what you're doing, which gives me a lot of confidence as a bit of a learner. We are outside the top 10 now, Tay, and we're getting into guys who are outside 20% ownership. At the moment, Malik Neighbours is the 11th guy. He comes in at an 18% ownership rate by SuperCoaches at $17.16 million. I think he's a gun, though. He is coming in with a 29-point break even from an offense where, mate, he didn't have good quarterback play at all last year, and he was still phenomenal. He missed 2 games with a concussion, and that's really the only thing that stopped him being a top 5-point getting wide receiver last year. He's someone who I'd very happily circle and go, he's going to be a gun and he's going to grow me money.
It's an interesting one. I've basically got a few questions here that I've sort of asked, and it's basically, do you believe in Russ? Do you think he is going to be able to facilitate a good season for him? Is he better than Daniel Jones? Is it an actual upgrade? Is it the same? I don't really know. The biggest question for me with Neighbours and this offense is, how good is this defense going to be? I've talked about, on our earlier shows as SuperCoaches, for people that haven't played NFL fantasy a lot, game script means everything. Like, honestly, these wide receivers, when they're in bad game scripts, when they're in front in games, they just kind of get the silencer put on them in the second half. They're not chasing points. So there's not as many reasons to throw the ball as obviously if you're down 24-7 in the second half. Yeah. I just am worried this defense is actually going to be far better than anyone gives it credit for. I think they're going to have possibly the best pass rush in the NFL, which is kind of crazy because no one's really giving the Giants credit for that. There is reason to believe that this team isn't going to need to pass the ball, and they're kind of going to be like a Pittsburgh Steelers kind of offense where they just sort of lean on the run a bit. They don't need to pass an absurd amount of times, and the volume's not as there for Malik Neighbours. He had 170 targets in his rookie season, which is a complete outlier for rookies. He's also coming into the season with a toe and back injury. I will say, I'll give a little bit of disclaimer. If Jameis Winston was to come in at wide as their quarterback at some stage, I would move heaven and earth to put Neighbours into my team, because my worries about Russ are completely thrown away if Jameis Winston was to ever come in for this team, because he's fling the living crap out of that ball. He'd throw 40 or 50 times, whereas I'm worried Russ only throws 20 to 30 times. Like, I think it's not going to be a high volume offense. So Neighbours isn't currently in my team because I think there's other guys I have less question marks about, but I also understand the talent. So if you want to put him in there, it's fine. I understand that, 17, 18, 90% of you, whatever it is currently doing it, but he's just not in my team currently.
Yeah, I didn't find a way to get him into my team either, but I can see he's got some markers that keep me interested. I've got his name circled. That's all I'm saying. I've got his name circled, mate.
There will be moments. There will be moments in the season where he's the right pick.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because then the guy immediately after him, same ownership rate, it's sort of that 16, 17, 18 kind of percent, right? And same kind of money, $17.32 million, is Nico Collins. Now, he's in a completely different boat because he was hurt quite a lot last year, but he still returned the same kind of season that we saw Malik Neighbours do, even though he's got stable quarterback play. I feel like that gives him an opportunity to grow. He's not in my team currently, but with a break-even, he's got a break-even similar, 29 points. I don't feel like there's a lot of questions as to whether he's got an opportunity to grow. I just haven't worked him into my team.
I love his talent. I've talked to you about this so many times, Matty C. It's a real eye test thing. He's just one of the elite talents in the league, I believe. I do have the same concern that I just brought up about the Giants with their defense. I think they're going to be a defensive team. I think they're not going to want to win shootouts. They're going to sort of lean on that side of the ball. They also have the worst offensive line grade in the league per BFF, so they are going to be a really, really bad offensive line. So there is concerns that Nico Collins might not have the time to sort of fly down the field because Stroud's basically eating turf on the ground when he turns around. So that is a concern as well. And obviously it's what do we get out of Stroud in season 3? We saw a rookie breakout in year 1, then obviously took a huge step back in year 2. What do we get in this year? But I'll bring up some stats. You sort of touched on it before. He was seriously going to the moon at the start of last year before he got injured. Week 1, 35.4 Supercoach points. Week 2, 55 Supercoach points. Week 3, 25.2. A little bit of a downer. Week 4, 66.2 Supercoach points. Week 5, he played just over one quarter and had 78 yards and a touchdown in that quarter. He was on fire. Like, that connection between him and Stroud was killing it. But then obviously got injured in that Week 5 game. It took him half the season to come back. I was laughing with you halfway through last year where it was Week 8, Week 9, Week 10, and he was still wide receiver 6 or 7 on the season.
Unbelievable.
He'd missed the last 5 games. Like, he was so good in those games. So believe me, I have no issue if someone sends me their team and it's got Nico Collins in it. I have absolutely no problems with it. I'm probably going to start without him, which I'm worried about, but I'm sort of looking at game script with some of these wide receivers, and I'm looking at guys that I think are going to be needing to pass a lot. And my concern is just week 1 is I want to see what it looks like. I want to see what this Texans defense is like. And I just am worried that if they're in, 17, 14, 20 to 17 games, that there might not be these enormous breakout Nico Collins games. But if there is, he's the kind of guy that I'll be jumping on early.
So, yeah, and I've got less concerns about that because I can see a guy like Malik Neighbours has been doing that in a shite Giants team that are in 17, 20 games, 23, 20 kind of games. So I'm not worried about a receiver having a really good day in a suppressed scoring game. But what it is for me is, I just want to see how good this defense is. And they're actually going to be up against not a horrible team in week 1. They're playing against the LA Rams. And I feel like that's going to show me where are the targets, how deep are the targets, how valuable are those targets, and are they anywhere near him? Are they catchable targets? That's going to inform a lot of how I react to Nico Collins. Will be after week 1.
If he starts the way he started last season, you're getting pick in SuperCoach. So it'll be something I keep an eye on. Whether it's something I change my mind, I'll let everyone know on the last podcast we do before the season starts. But believe me, he's one I'm circling as someone to shift one of my current guns over to. It just, like I said, there's just a couple of questions I just want answered.
Yeah, if I can get the points and I can take an $8-9 million discount on a player, I'm going to do it. So, this is it. This is why I've got some of these guys circled and they're not in my team yet. These last couple are super interesting because now we start hitting what we probably consider to be mid-range price points. We've already talked about one with Tyreek Hill, but the next one is Marvin Harrison Jr. What's weird about him is in drafting formats, you've got to spend a fairly early draft pick on him considering his performance last year. But in SuperCoach, because I'm priced off the previous year's performance, I can now kind of look at him and go, well, actually, now that's really worthwhile. I haven't put him in my team, though, because I could see the danger. It's not like he had unstable quarterback play. He had the same quarterback all year long, but that offense was it was a disaster against some very good defenses in the middle of the year. And Marvin Harrison showed up that he was a rookie learning his way around real adult men defenses. So I want to see him perform. He's currently owned by about 12% of super coaches and has a break even around 20 points. I'm happy that he can sustain that, but I'm not spending $12 million to sustain a score.
I'm just going to quickly, before I talk about Marvin Harrison specifically, something you just touched on. I didn't have this plan to do it. It's something that I've brought up on an earlier podcast, but what you said there made perfect sense, where it's, if you may not like Marvin regular NFL fantasy because of where he's going in ADP or average draft position, but he might be a better Supercoach play because he's being based off exactly what his stats were last year. So this is the biggest for anyone who's questioning what's the difference between NFL Supercoach and regular NFL fantasy. The biggest thing I can say to you is that in regular NFL fantasy, you are basing off people's perception of a player, not what they did last year. So Marvin Harrison is getting an enormous bump because of the pedigree of the player and what we all believe he should be, not what he has been. So Marv might not be an amazing pick in NFL fantasy because he's going at wide receiver 20, 21, whatever, because people believe he's going to break out. Whereas on SuperCoach, we are basing it only off what the exact stats were last year and what he is being priced at. So just for anyone that's got some questions, that is exactly what we are doing here and what you brought up at the start there. So I thought that was a really good thing to sort of reiterate. Like I've mentioned, it's a bet on pedigree with Harrison. Things were incredibly random in his rookie season. He had 116 targets, which is generally fine, but you look at 107 for the league neighbours, like it's just such a big difference. And, you know, he had a game where he had 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then another game where he had 111 yards and 1 touchdown. He didn't have over 100 yards in any other game all season. Like, it was so sporadic. You just never knew exactly when it was going to come. So this is all about, do you believe in a year 2 bump? Obviously, defenses sort of could start looking at Trey McBride, because Trey McBride had a full breakout at tight end. So maybe there's an opportunity where Marv isn't getting as much defensive coverage on him in year 2 than he would have in year 1. They do have a better offensive line. They brought everyone back and sort of added to that. So that's obviously a point in the favour too. I think there are reasons to believe it could happen. And because you are basing this off his exact stats from last year, he is priced at a very good price. Like I said, in regular NFL fantasy, we don't want that to bleed in. We have our issues because you're having to basically take him because everyone's assuming that he's going to be better this year. So, yeah, based off the price, I've got no issue. It's just whether you can fit a mid-ranger into your build.
Yeah. Right. You probably said all the things I was thinking much more in much more detailed, succinct detail. So I'm very glad you did that, because my thinking was that's the benefit of a player like this, but you've done a better job of describing that than me. I think he still comes with his risks, which is kind of why he's not part of my build. But I can understand the benefits and why there's folks out there who will want to see him as part of their build. He's currently in that little slide down to 12% ownership. And it's really funny just how top-heavy some of these ownership percentages are and how fast it drops away. And I think we will see that stabilize a little bit as we start seeing people score some points.
Yep, no, absolutely, man.
2 to go. These guys are both 11%. Puka Nacua is currently priced as a gun, $17.86 million with a 30-point break even. He hasn't convinced everybody, though. Only 11% SuperCoach ownership. Not in my build. I feel like he's quite expensive for a guy who I know he's going to see the work and he's going to get the targets. I just think that ball, the valuable targets and touchdowns, we've talked a lot about this, Tay. I feel like there's other places in that offense that feed off that more than Puka Nacua does. Puka gets his volume in smaller bits and lots of small bits. He doesn't necessarily hit the big touchdowns where the big point play is for SuperCoach, and that's what's got me stepping a little bit back away from him at that price.
He's very similar to Amon-Ra to me. I'll probably he's in my team right now, and honestly, the fact that he's only 11% owned actually makes me want him more. I do feel like I want to be looking at guys that just are completely owned, and he kind of fits the bill for me. I will take a look and decide, is there too much safety in having both him and Amon-Ra? That'll be something I'm going to keep a look at, but I think right now I just like the safety of week 1 of knowing basically what I'm getting out of these guys. So he's in my team right now. When Stafford's there, Puka is an absolute animal. You know, there is less risk in SuperCoach in the format of taking Puka Nacua because of the injury risk. So he has injury risk himself. And obviously Matt Stafford, his quarterback, has huge injury risk. He's already coming in. He's an older quarterback, and he's already, looking like he's got a back injury in this preseason. But in SuperCoach, I'm less worried about that because we can just trade him. Like week 1, I'm going to know if Stafford's there. And if Stafford's there, I'm going to play him because he absolutely Puka Nacua. He is his guy. He is an amazing route runner. And there is going to be so many reasons as to believe this offense is going to be able to move the ball. And because this offense is in the red zone more, there's at least reason to believe. Like, I'll put this to you, Matty C. He's being priced off basically no touchdowns. So to me to say he's got no upside in terms of touchdowns, that's already baked in. It's already priced in that he's got no touchdowns. So what happens if all of a sudden the Puka Nacua has 6, 7, 8 touchdowns this year? It's only upside. So I don't know. I just think, like I said, that I'm less worried about the injury concerns to him and Stafford because of the way that SuperCoach was run, and you can just trade him out. Look, I've got less concerned about him than others do, and I think the 11% is actually making me want him more.
Oh, I like that. And I like that we kind of have the conflicting stance on that because I'm a little bit like, hey, there's everything that's repeatable about what he does. And I like that that's very stable because he does it in grains. He doesn't do it in big plays. So then if he's missing big play, that hurts him a lot. He's kind of doing it in very repeatable stuff in small pieces. So I like that. But he just hasn't found his way into part of my build. And it's because I've got a player later I want to talk about as my pod who is kind of doing some of those things. The last guy on this list is for the 15th wide receiver we wanted to talk about was Lad McConkey. It's one of the funnest names to say in all of fantasy football, and I often wonder what it would have been like going through school with a name like Lad McConkey. It just sounds like a rough one. But here he is at 11% ownership, $14.63 million, and a break-even of only 24, which I think is entirely reasonable for a guy who now finds himself as pretty much the only guy there holding the baby. And then he's got a very unreliable wide receiver, Quentin Johnston, next to him, who's a drop machine, or he's a streak merchant, one or the other. He scores a million or none. And then a rookie called Trey Harris, who I also like the look of. But they've also brought back the ghost of Keenan Allen, who'd been a superstar there only 12 months earlier. He led all wide receivers in fantasy points for the longest time through the season. So we know he had it. Goes to Chicago and all of a sudden comes back looking quite old. So I feel like he's got this wonderful role, but I don't know how much that offense wants to be a pass-first offense, Tay. We've seen Jim Harbaugh likes to run it.
Yeah, look, honestly, for anyone that's heard us on our other show, Lad McConkey's been my biggest fade in regular NFL fantasy this season. Now, his price in SuperCoach isn't as bad as his average draft position in NFL fantasy, but it's still one that I just don't see the upside for in week one. He broke out because the team had no running game at the end of last year, and there was basically no one else to throw to. Greg Roman, their offensive coordinator, and Harbaugh, their head coach, they just want to run the ball. They upgraded their running back room, so they didn't want to have to do what they did at last year. So they've basically done and drafted Hampton. They brought in Najee, who we'll need to see obviously if he's there week one or not. McConkey, granted, he was a rookie, so he didn't actually have more than 67 yards till week 7. So, like I said, he is a rookie. So, you had to believe there was rookie pains at the start of last year. So I'm not just basing it all on that. But when they were basically running the ball well, he wasn't as needed. Keenan Allen, who, yes, I get is 33 years old and missed most of camp, he's been brought in. So there's already kind of more target share or more competition there for him than there was at the end of last year. And, Keenan Allen has a connection with Herbert already. He's been there for God knows how many years before he left for the Bears last year. If there's any injuries to Hampton or Najee, like he already has been injured, I can see a world where McConkey might be like a pickup, maybe even at a discount later in the season. I just do not trust it from week one.
He'll do things like play the Raiders twice a year as well, which that might be a week where I work him in. Just he may be very much up dependent for me. But given his price too, I've got players in that in the couple of $1 million around who I just kind of prefer because I kind of feel like I know what they are, where I don't quite know what Lad is, and I kind of feel like the things I know about him all come with but. so I'm a bit happy to pass on him, but I understand why people will have for every little bit of skepticism I've got, I understand there's going to be people with optimism, and you should go and own the guys that you love.
People just remember his run at the end of last year and didn't look into the actual circumstances that led to it. So I'm here just saying if they are able to actually go back to running the ball like they wanted to last year and they're not needing to throw like they did when their running game sort of faltered, I just don't think the targets and the volume's going to be there for McConkey. And then obviously, like I've brought up with Keenan Allen, even Trey Harris as a rookie, I don't mind. But there's just more reason to believe that he's not just going to be this absolute volume hunter that he was at the end of last year.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you and I are kind of in a similar spot there. And that's the 15 most owned wide receivers by super coaches at the moment. Tay, we like to wrap each episode up with a pod or two. Do you have a pod we can talk about?
I've brought two, and I actually just kind of randomly mentioned the name of one. It was more to do with the builds, but I'll touch on him second. The first one is one that I won't have in my team, but I wanted to put him out there just for anyone that's looking for a shot around that like $7-8 million mark for someone that just might give them a good cash boost early. It's Cedric Tillman of the Cleveland Browns. So he's $8.49 million, break even of 14 and 1% owned. Basically, what I've done is I've brought some stats up of when Jameis played last year because we've got Joe Flacco stepping in for the Cleveland Browns. It's from week 1. And honestly, Jameis is a very similar style quarterback to Joe Flacco. They just throw the living shit out of it. They don't care if they're going to get dropped the next week. That's just not what they care about. Flacco's 100 years old, so he doesn't care about his next job. He's just out there doing what he wants to do. In those games, so basically Tillman had 8 for 81, 8 receptions for 81 yards, which is 32.2 SuperCoach points. Then he had 7 for 99 with 2 touchdowns for 57.8 SuperCoach points. 6 for 75 and 1 touchdown, so 39 SuperCoach points. Then he had a little bit of an off game where he had 3 for 47, 15.4 SuperCoach points, which is still above his break even in an off game. So I just wanted to put him out there because I think there's a chance he could actually hit the ground running. He's a huge target of mine in regular NFL fantasy, super late. No one's even looking at him. So I just put him out there. The other guy, ADC, so this is different. This guy I am very much toying with starting with. And he obviously just had a suspension to the wide receiver one in the team, which I think means a lot. He's out for 6 weeks. It's Xavier Worthy. Last 3 weeks of the regular season last season, I just want to put this out there. And his rushing work is obviously a huge point of this as well. So he was 4 receptions for 46 yards and 3 for 30 on the ground and 1 touchdown for 35.2 SuperCoach points. Then the next week, 7 receptions for 65 yards and a touchdown and 3 for 10 on the ground, 41 SuperCoach points. Then 8 for 79 and 1 touchdown and 2 for 10 on the ground for 45.8 SuperCoach points. He's got a break even of 19 going into week 1. I just think with that Rice suspension, I think there's a world where he's actually built a rapport with Patrick Mahomes and he could hit the ground running and be that mid-ranger that really bursts up into that sort of higher tier. He's the kind of guy that when Rice came back to, that I think he's a perfect trade out around week 7. So he's one that I'm toying with, like, do I start with a Tyreek Hill and Xavier Worthy at the bottom of my wide receivers, or do I go a gun and an Egbuka? It's just a question I'm sort of looking at right now.
See, now I've done exactly what you've done there with the gun and the Egbuka thing, and my plot is a gun, absolute gun. And I actually think you're going to love the hell out of this. Mike Evans is $17 million, but he is priced off last year. Do you know how many games he missed last year? It was 5.5 games that he missed last year, and he still managed a 1,000-yard season and 13 touchdowns. This is that offense that's going to sling the ball a lot, right? And we know that in his absence, and there was also some absence by Chris Godwin, who's still been out since that injury. Baker Mayfield was not skittish about just continuing to hurl the ball to his cast of B players. To have his absolutely, there's no way you can describe Mike Evans any other way than his primo target, back healthy, looking strong, and you're only paying off last year's production. He is 2% owned. Seems crazy to me. You and I have been in fisticuffs in car parks about who gets him in drafts a lot this year in the draft side of it. But to me, I don't think that value is exclusive to that. I think you can bring that into here, and there's a massive chance that Mike Evans may be the kind of guy who is in the sort of price range of Jamar Chase by the end of the year, but you've also got the points.
Yep, no, I've got no problem with it. He's one that I actually like kind of even more in regular NFL because his age, he just gets sort of thrown down the ADP. Like people see him as boring and don't want to take the shot on him. The only reason I didn't look into him in this is he's based off his like per game average, not so much his entire year. So that 17 mil price tag is kind of getting up there, but I'm with you. He's going to be the wide receiver one. His connection with Baker is absurd. So mate, I've got absolutely no problem with starting up Mike Evans because he's got that boom game potential where he could like really get you off to a hot start. So mate, go for it.
Yeah, I think, years ago when Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford were having breakfast together and secret little breakfast meetings, I actually think that Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans are each other's breakfast. I think that's how connected they are.
Oh, I reckon they might marry each other. Like, it's not just. I was like, one's going to be the best man at the other person's wedding. I think they might just get married. Look, just cut out the middleman and just go for it, boys.
I'd be all right with it. Love is love, and I love them both. So there you go, mate. We've made it to the bottom of a 4th episode of SuperCoach Halfa. This Halfa thing we've got absolute disrespect for, but I feel like people will let us away with that.
It might turn into the SuperCoach Hour at some stage, but look, we've gone with the name and it's sticking around for now. To be fair, I haven't been hearing any complaints that we've been going too long or they haven't liked the content. So, yeah, look, if we're going sort of just under that hour mark, then so be it. But, yeah, it'll stay the name for now.
For the time being. Mate, we will be together again for the NFL season. We've got a couple of NFL fantasy shows going up. We've also got the G'day Gridiron guys doing their thing this week, where we're all talking about teams in the AFC and NFC East. So if you haven't caught any of those, go and find them. They're here on the network. Also, for those of you who are into gridiron happening in Australia, Manjot and I have been working on a show called Aussie Gridiron Today. We're going to be very heavily entrenched in the ACT, American Football League, this year. We actually even commentate the games through the season. We're starting to put out some season previews for those teams as well. So find that around the network. You can find all of this, not just on podcast form, but some of these things go through the YouTube. So go and check it out and find it all at linktree/Aussie Gridiron Network. Hey, Tay, will I see you for another one of these SuperCoach whatever lengths next week?
Hell yeah.
All right, mate. Looking forward to going through some of these remaining positions and a bit of strategy before we kick off games. So let's get into it, mate.
For sure, mate. Like I said, we'll touch. We probably do like tight end, kicker, and defense kind of together, and sort of just touch on that because there is far less to go through right before the season, and then we might even drop a pod just about matchups and just sort of good matchup plays for week one. But yeah, no, we'll be here all season, mate. Can't wait.
Going to be great. In the meantime, I'm going to get out of here. Hooroo, mate.
Hooroo. Thank you, SuperCoaches.
SuperCoach Halfa. Get your edge, get it faster. Taylor leads, Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Halfa. SuperCoach Halfa. Get your edge, get it faster. Taylor leads, Matty's laughter.